Nothing in my life was ever made better by alcohol. Everything always eventually became terrible when I drank.
From the Mamma Mia podcast network, I'm Mia Friedman, and you are listening to the No Filter podcast. Candid conversations about things that count. Osher Gunsberg is not who you think he is. Well, yes, he is the guy who hosts The Bachelor and The Bachelorette on TV twice a year, and he's the boss of the Roses. And yes, he did used to host another massive reality show called Australian Idol, back when he was called Andrew. And before that, he was called Andy G, and he was a VJ on a music channel called Channel V. But if that's your only experience of Osher, you really don't know him at all. And it's not because he's embarrassed of all of those jobs. He's actually one of the hardest working and most disciplined and professional people that I've ever met in the entertainment industry. And no matter what's been going on in his private life over the last 10 years, you'd never know that if you worked with him, because he hid it really well. And there was a lot to hide. Osher has written a memoir called Back After the Break. And in it, he talks about some truly terrible times that he's experienced as recently as just a few months ago. Osher's story is pretty common, and yet it's unique to him. He's the only person I know who's been married twice while hosting incredibly popular reality shows at the same time as experiencing mental illness, OCD, anxiety, body dysmorphia, and even psychosis. Osher has a big, big heart, and he's very intent on telling his story as a way to help people understand some of the issues that he's been through and the demons that he's still fighting. This is the second time I've interviewed Osher on No Filter. And if you don't know much about him beyond The Bachelor, this conversation is going to blow your mind and open your eyes wider than you thought possible. But just a couple of warnings. This is an adult conversation that's not suitable for little ears, both because of the things that we talk about and it gets a little bit sweary. Here's Osher. February 21st, 2014.
Yes.
Give me a bit of context as to where you were in your life on that day.
So that was the day that I slipped into psychosis and started having psychotic episodes. And a whole bunch of factors I'd been off meds for about 9 months. I had a very torrid and super intense on again, off again kind of, it was a summer romance and we thought it was going to be something else, but I had no idea I'd never dated sober before, so I didn't know how to be in a relationship in sobriety. All I knew was how to drive at 180 through a school zone of, I'm so intense. It's unbearable for the other person.
I thought that part of your book was really interesting because I've never heard that kind of relationship accelerator situation described from a male point of view before. Right. It's usually the trope is that the woman goes too fast, but I know so many women who've been in situations with men where they've gone at 1,000,000 miles an hour and then in many cases they've just pressed eject.
Oh, no, she pressed eject.
Yeah.
But it was on again, off again, and it was really confusing.
So this was after your divorce.
Yes.
You were living in LA.
I was living in Venice Beach. I had, what else was going on? There's a bunch of stresses that were happening. My father was very ill. Bachelor had still to be greenlit in February. We didn't know if we were coming back.
After the first season.
Pretty late. That's pretty late. What else was happening at the time?
What were you doing in LA?
Being unemployed, paying rent out of my savings. I was developing and pitching TV shows. That's what I was doing, because it was fairly clear that by this point they weren't hiring people who were good at hosting live television to host live television. They were hiring people who had massive Instagram followers and people who were already famous to host live television, and just kind of winging it, hoping that by reading the auto cue they'd be fine. And, shiny floor television kind of went away, and I quite realised very quickly that, the thing that I'm good at nobody really wants anymore. Okay, I'm going to have to figure out something else to do. So I was really, really, really stressed. But I'd also been off meds for about 9 months, and I did not want to admit to myself that it was getting worse and worse and worse. And the last 3 or 4 months of it were terrible.
Why had you gone off meds in the first place?
Because I was doing really well. And I was back in Australia to do the first season of The Bachelor, and I was sober and I was fit, and I was in close contact with my doctor for about 10 weeks living down here to do The Batch. So between him and I, we made the decision, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And so I went off and I tried to use all these management strategies that I use now quite effectively. But back then I wasn't healthy enough to do it. And so even though I ran, even though I ate well, even though I did all the journaling and stuff, it just wasn't working. And slowly, 8 hours sleep a night turned to 7, turned to 6, turned to 5.
What were you on medication for before you went off?
Generalized anxiety and social phobia is what I got diagnosed with. But I threw myself into the fellowship, the sobriety fellowship that I'm a part of, and I hit a meeting every day, sometimes twice a day. I stayed close. I was trying to be of service. I was trying to help other people, but none of it was working. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd literally have to make my bed again because I'd thrashed around so much in my sleep that I'd pulled the elasticized corners of the sheet off of my bed. And that was maybe 4 hours after I'd laid in it. So it was getting worse and worse, but I didn't want to admit that I was losing. I didn't want to live life that way.
Were you feeling panicked? All
the time. It was getting worse, but I was such an idiot. I just didn't want to go back on the meds because going back on the meds was, I've failed, that's how I looked at it then. I don't look at it now like that now.
Even with all of your, I suppose all the work that you've done, you still felt that it was a failure to be on meds somehow?
No, I felt it would be a failure to have to go back on them in that. But then that particular day, I'd always been, I've always been environmentally aware. I went vegan because of environmental awareness. I've always been, paying attention to climate policy and energy policy because it's something that interests me, and I think it's the most pressing issue that faced every single one of us. I don't care which side of the aisle you sit. And for some reason that day, something popped in my brain, and I was absolutely 100% convinced that the full catastrophic ramifications of the worst possible case scenario projections of full climate change effect were happening, and they were happening today.
You described sitting down reading an article in the New York Times, just innocently just having benign. A coffee, just reading a story, and it happened to be about climate change. And it was that, what did it trigger in you? Exactly that. Oh my God, the seas are going to rise 15 meters and the earth is going to warm up 10 degrees, and all food production and food storage and transportation and everything, and a way of, looking after ourselves and holding on to our lives and the lifestyle that we live in, entire South Pacific nations will vanish. And I'm the only one that knows about it. And I was convinced that I was the only one that knew about it or the only one that cared. So that's where the delusion comes in. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Because the anxiety and the catastrophizing of it is something that I recognise from having anxiety. Yeah. My trigger is health anxiety, but that sense of your body thinks that you are in imminent danger. Absolutely. Like you release the same kind of cortisol and adrenaline as if someone was about to kill you and you were about to die. Absolutely. And yet you're sitting in your lounge room on a beautiful sunny day in LA. Well, I went for a run because that was my coping strategy always has been go for a run. And so I lived quite near Washington, which is the Venice Pier, and my regular run was down from the Venice Pier to the Santa Monica Pier and back, which was about 10 Ks, and I was doing that every day. But it wasn't long. I wasn't long down the path before, I was getting this overwhelming urge to just run up and warn people and shout at people and say, "What are you doing? Don't you understand? The fucking world's going to end today. You got to get home. Everything's going to be." And I started, those Baywatch towers, the lifeguard towers, they're very famous that you see on the beach there. Underneath them, there's a giant concrete block and there's a chain that goes underneath the concrete block to the lifeguard tower. I don't know, in case there's a hurricane or something. But as I ran, I'm now running and I'm underwater running, and I'm seeing these things kind of floating, bobbing like a perverse kind of ocean buoy, and I'm looking above me and I'm seeing the palm trees above my head, and they're not, the crowns of the palm trees are now like kind of weird water lilies. So you were hallucinating? I don't know if they were, hallucinations. Like were you imagining it or in your mind's eye? It was very, very hard to tell the difference between am I imagining this or is it real? It was almost impossible to tell that difference because later on, like in a few days after this, I managed to finally get a chance to get to my doctor, and he explained the difference between neurosis and psychosis. Now, neurosis is when you feel a physical pain. Anyone will remember this. When you break up with someone or you lose a loved one or you lose a job and you have this pain because you wish the fact were not true. And between the fact and what you thought was normal is a pain. It's like, I can't accept that this has happened, that I'm not longer married to this person, or this person that I loved is dead now, or the job that I wanted and need for money is gone. Now, he told me then that psychosis is when that pain becomes so great, your brain just reinterprets the reality to protect yourself.
well, that person's not dead, that person's still alive. Or you keep turning up to the job that you've been fired for, or all kinds of stuff. So my brain was starting to reinterpret the reality, and it was terrifying.
You describe in the book about walking down the street and like grunting and swatting the air.
Yeah.
Explain what that was like.
Well, it's not just a mental pain. I was actually feeling physical symptoms. Like if you have a big brother or a big sister and you are calmly playing on the floor as a kid and they run up behind you and flick your ear, right? And you go, ah! And you kind of, but then as you hear them coming close to you, you kind of flinch even before they've got there. I was flinching away from the thoughts, and the actual pain was agonizing, the pain inside my body. I've had anxiety before, Mia, where I've felt as if someone were crushing my throat, the actual feeling, the tactile sensation of touch upon my skin, and then kind of brushing my neck, thinking there was something there, but there's nothing there. I've had that before.
So you've really articulated what you often see homeless people in the street doing.
Precisely, and that's exactly...
those twitches and those body movements.
That's exactly, because anyone that's been to Southern California will see that as an aspect of... We have universal healthcare in this country. We are very, very lucky to have it, but they don't have that in the States. And quite a number of very seriously mentally ill people end up on the street. And back down where I was living in Venice Beach, there's quite a number of people that live on the street. And I was jogging down this path. By this point, I'm running home because I'm like, if I start running up and warning people, then I'm going to get committed. I've got to get
So you had
home.
a little bit of a sense of still grounded in reality.
Yeah, a little bit. I knew I was sick.
I'm going crazy.
I knew I was sick. I knew I was very sick. And that had come, I was very lucky for that. My mentor told me the problem with crazy people is they don't know they're crazy. I was really lucky in that through years of... I got diagnosed with, I was in New York on September 11 with a camera crew, and there was I wrote about it in the book, but I was very weird when I came back, and I got diagnosed with PTSD, and I had to learn a thing called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, where you learn to question your automatic thoughts. And then later in sobriety, again, I was like, I'd worked the muscle of questioning my thoughts of like, that person's being an asshole. Or is that person just being, and I'm making them an asshole? Like even that separation of questioning your thoughts. So that was quite an automatic thing for me to question. I didn't get it right all the time, obviously, and I often wanted them to be an asshole because I didn't want to be in the wrong. But, you know, the idea of questioning the thoughts was kind of part of my general processing of thinking. And then as I'm running, I'm like, this is not right. No one else is panicking. You know, like when you're on an aeroplane and the turbulence is kicking in and you look at the crew and the crew are fine. You're like, well, they're all right. So maybe I'm the one that's worried here. I was, running down the beach, and there's thousands of people. It was a lovely day. No one was terrified. No one was thinking that the seas were rising that day, or there was some big kind of, tidal wave coming. So, oh, fuck, it's me. Jesus, fuck, I've got to get home. And so I ran home. I ran home so fast. But as I ran, I passed this guy who was shuffling along the beach to one of the public toilets there. And he was so much younger than me. And I'm, at this point, as every thought comes like, and I'm doing this, and it's like every fucking bang, bang, bang. It's coming every 5-8 seconds. It was like this enormous physical anguish and mental anguish. I couldn't accept, fuck, the world's ending. I'm the only one that knows. Fuck. It just wouldn't stop. And I'm grunting and I'm fucking flinching, and it was so scary. And I ran past this guy, and he's grunting and muttering and flinching as I am. But this guy, he's had the stink of someone who's living with mental illness and is just lost in that world. And, he might not know that something was wrong, but we were doing the same thing.
That must have been terrifying to see yourself in him.
Holy shit, I'm in trouble. I'm in a lot of trouble, because I understood exactly what he was doing. I was like, oh, I'm with you. Oh, no. So I ran home, and I called my guy, I called my mentor, and he said, I don't think I drew breath for about 3 minutes, telling him how, mate, you've really got to, you've got to get to the hills as fast as you can, because the sea's going to rise today, and, society's going to break down. There's going to be no food supply. Refrigeration's going to be over. I don't know if you know how to farm, but fuck, you're going to have to store some food, because, I was like that. Yeah. It was as real as we sit across from each other, Mia. It was that real. And he goes, you need to go to a doctor, and fast. But I wasn't able to see my doctor until that Monday. It was a terrifying couple of days. Did
you want to have a drink?
I was so lucky that I didn't, because I knew.
Because that's another thing. That must have taken, was that just an inbuilt level of control that you knew that was just a no-go area?
Well, I knew that the surefire way, as a sober person, the surefire way to make a bad situation inconceivably worse is to drink. Absolutely. Nothing in my life was ever made better by alcohol.
Yeah.
Nothing. Everything always eventually became terrible when I drank. And I knew for a fact, it's like, well, I know one way. And I'm so glad that I was able to stay sober during this time, because had I been drinking, my ability to hold on when it got really bad, because it got way worse, my ability to hold on and not take action that would have ended the situation permanently was there. Had I been drinking, I wouldn't have had that. And I would have just gone, fuck it. And I would have done it.
You did get worse. You started to both, you talk about suicide ideation, and you started thinking about it, not just like once in a dark moment, but 20 times a day, which I can't imagine how exhausting that must feel.
Yeah, it was.
And distressing.
It was very, very difficult, but I'd never understood it before. But I mean, as anyone, you have an office, there's 100 people in there. Every single person in there, every single person knows someone that has died by suicide. Yeah. Right? And the first time it happens, you're so confused. You don't know why that person did that.
What could they be thinking?
Why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? So there I was. I'm in Israel. I'm shooting a TV pilot for a big money game show. They've flown me over there.
In the middle of all of this.
In the middle of all this, I'm like, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to go shoot this TV pilot. They're going to, they're pitching it to Talpa. It could be, they're going to go to, MIPCOM with it. It's going to be like a big, big deal. All right. It's a big budget thing, and they wanted an English language host. And so I'm there, and I'm in Israel, and it's like every 5 to 8 seconds I'm just dealing with this agony, and every time I open my eyes and I look at the beautiful Mediterranean, all I see is that the water level is now 15 meters higher than it is right now, and people are walking around going, how great is it, so warm today? I'm like, fuck, it's the world's ending and you don't know it. And it was terrifying, right?
So you'd be triggered by everything. Even the feeling of the sun on your face would trigger you.
I couldn't go outside for so long, Mia. It just was every 5 seconds, every 8 seconds I would be hit with this pain, like someone's jabbing me in the stomach with a barbecue skewer, right? And it just wouldn't stop. It would go for hours, and I'm like, is this going to be the rest of my life? Yeah. Is this how my life is going to be forever? Because it hasn't stopped for days. And in that moment, Mia, it was the best idea I'd ever had. It's going to be so peaceful.
Did you tell people?
At the time, I told people that mattered.
Did you tell people in order to help keep you alive?
Oh, absolutely.
As insurance?
Well, I had the training of going through sobriety. A big part of staying sober is being accountable to other people. And so that means calling people and just being on the phone, go, hey, I'm having a really bad time. I don't want to have a drink. I don't want to pick up a drink, but I'll pick up a phone. Can you just talk to me for 5 minutes? And then people, you talk to each other, and 5 minutes later, you're like, I don't want to drink now. Okay, thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, I'm off now. I reckon I FaceTime, Skyped, and phone called people for 14 straight hours. I called my doctor, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning in Sydney. So by that point, I'm whoever's awake in whatever time zone anywhere in the world. I didn't give a shit about how much it cost me on the hotel phone. But
those calls must have been very distressing to receive as well, I imagine, for your loved ones.
Oh yeah, my brothers were there. I was so lucky. I was able to talk to my brothers.
But lucky that you called.
Yeah, and they could see in my face, and they could tell in my voice, oh, hang on, okay, go to down tools and talk to him.
And so what did they do to get you off the sort of proverbial ledge? Just
grounded me. I know that it was actual ledge. I was on the 13th floor with a balcony door that opened the whole way.
What did they say to you?
Just helped me get present, help ground me, and help, because the terror was that I was alone. The terror was that I was the only person that knew. The terror was that, no one else understands this, and the world is flying into cataclysm, and that, it's not real. I mean, there's squillions of people.
Would they try to talk you out of the idea? Would they say it's not true, or would they say yes, but?
Look, to be honest, the part of my brain that would have accepted a rational response was utterly malfunctioning.
Yeah.
You could have said, here is 10,000 climate scientists all got together and go, actually, we got it wrong. Everything's fine. I would have gone, see, they're all in on it. They're on the conspiracy.
Okay.
It wouldn't have, the part of my brain that was accepting rational responses had stopped working.
Yeah.
Okay. So it didn't matter. What they did to me, to answer your question, what they did for me is just, ground me in reality. I was like, there's another person in this world. There they are. there they are. They're, on a Skype or a FaceTime or whatever, and here we are, we're talking, or on the phone to people that I couldn't get to video-wise. We're talking, and tell me about your day. What are you doing today? Oh, yeah, I'm gardening, or yeah, I'm cooking.
Distraction is helpful.
I don't know. It was more just like, tell me about the world outside of this hotel room. Tell me, okay, there's other things happening.
It gave you something to think about that wasn't inside your own head.
Just expanding. Yeah. Because at the time, everything was so... It was like a billboard, all right, that you drive past on the freeway. If you've ever broken down or pulled off for a wee or something and you stand under one of those billboards on the freeway, they're fucking massive, all right? When you fly past it at 100 kilometers an hour, you're like, oh, it's just a thing on the side of the road. But when you stand there, I think it's as big as a tennis court, right? So it was as if sometimes you see them changing the billboards, and it was if I was standing on the little grating in front of the billboard, and that's all that I could see. It was taking up my entire field of vision, all right? That's all that I could see. And I wasn't able to connect with or speak to or discuss anything with anyone because all I can see is this horrifying cataclysmic vision, all right? But by speaking to them, you kind of get a little peek around the corner. You go, oh, okay, there's something else over there. But this thing, okay, but just over there, there's, okay. All right, 10 seconds of respite was enough, all right? But over time, that's a psychosis. It's not allowing me to see anything but this delusion. And over time with work, that billboard gets smaller. Now it's the size of a pool table. All right, I'm trying to connect with my family. I'm having to look around this thing. I can look around it, but it's still there. This is horrifying, kind of big, frightening thing that still hurts my body, and I still get physical anguish from it. Slowly. And now it's about the size of this this little coaster here on the table. It's still in my field of vision. I still see it every day. It's there every single day. If I don't sleep enough, if I don't eat right, if I don't do my thing in the morning, it gets bigger and it starts to overtake things, and I can't connect with my family. I can't do my work because there's this thing that's occluding my vision and my ability to connect with the world. But I know that, okay, if I just manage everything else, take care of the things I can, which is the sleep, which is the eating, which is the purpose, which is the fitness and health, it gets smaller and smaller, and I'm just kind of able to deal with it. Occasionally, it's like an iPhone that suddenly starts, in the middle of a dinner, the iPhone lights up and someone's eyes go to it. Sometimes it's like that, all right? And you go, oh, shit, it's just taking me away from this moment with my wife. All right, okay.
Is the drought triggering you a lot?
It has been tough, all right? That's been very difficult because, you get all these fantastic climate change deniers going, we've got to help the battlers. You want to help the fucking battlers? Close the coal mines, mate. It's pretty easy. Figure out how to make alternative energy. Like, it's pretty simple. The answer's right there. But, so it is a bit triggery, but that's okay. It's not for me. I'm not in energy policy. I don't do that stuff for my job.
Do you have to avoid reading things about it? About climate change?
There was a time when I absolutely couldn't. I can handle about 2 or 3 articles a day, which is epic for me.
2 or 3 articles a day. Because it's obviously something you're passionately interested in, even though it's also the source of enormous problems for you. Yeah, but there was a time I'd check into a hotel room, and sometimes when you check into a hotel room, they have the television on for some reason. It says, welcome, Mr. Günsberg, or whatever. I remember checking into a hotel room, and there was this footage of just ghost reef, just utterly horribly bleached coral reef, and I was fucked for a whole day, because that thing's just because I have a brain that just loves anxiety and rumination. That's what I've got. That's the brain I got, right? But you mentioned that you think you come from a line of people who were probably really good at seeking out danger so they could avoid it. And that's why you're here.
Yeah, my ancestors jumped and flinched at every shadow and rustle in the bushes, made us the most surviving survivors of all surviving people. And they were really helpful. It allowed the genetic predisposition of being alert to danger was the thing that helped my greatest, squillion 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago ancestors survive. But that's the switch that I've got. That's what I've got. And so, when I look at that stuff, the way because the thing is, the rationalizing part of my brain now is healed a lot. And so I'm able to rationalize. Before I couldn't, all right? And now I can rationalize a lot better. No, it's not perfect, but I can rationalize a lot better than I used to. And so now when I see that stuff and I feel, I'm just, okay, that's all right. Look, there's a lot of people going to find out about this. This is important. You were the canary. You're one of the canaries in the coal mine. When it all went down, you started talking to people. Every one of your friends that you called all said, yes, yeah, that's happening. It's scary. Yeah, you're right. It's okay. So you're not alone. You're not alone. And the more people find out about this, the more the general population political will move to change. And then it's only when it starts affecting, the average punter that people are going to, go, oh, maybe we should do something. We're just going to have to wait. It's a pity, but we're just going to have to wait.
Through the last probably third or quarter of your book, you talk about how in parallel to all of this and the battle that you have been waging in and around mental health for many years, but since the psychosis more intensely and with lots of different types of medication, because one would then trigger effects which you would then need something else to counteract. And I could really see how it became a slippery slope in terms of things building up. But you also met Audrey, who is now your wife, and the way that unfolded next to your journey, we'll call it that, with mental health, it's an incredible story of resilience in terms of love and persistence, in terms of her just fighting for you, fighting really for your relationship.
She absolutely did. And I am so lucky. I'm so lucky that I met this woman.
Yeah, you are.
So I met this woman in the middle of it. I was in the middle of it. And like you mentioned, medication, it's not like there's three of us sitting in this room right now. There's an engineer that you're not hearing from, but she's, say the three of us all have a headache. The three of us all might take 500 milligrams of paracetamol, and in 20 minutes, the three of us will probably all report, you know what, the headache, it's more or less gone. All right, that we're three completely different physiologies, different ages, different sexes, different body types, different sizes, different upbringings, different ages, but this one drug will affect us all the same, all right? But I have such a different, trauma, history or whatever, like the drug that works for me will not work for anybody else in this room, or the drug
or might work in a different way.
Yeah, exactly, all right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not like 20 minutes later. Sometimes you've got to wait 6 weeks for these things to kick in, maybe longer, all right? So it's hard. You've got to wait and try and test and grit your teeth and just go, oh, fuck, I'm putting on a kilo a week. Am I feeling better? Not yet. And so at one point I was on 4 different kinds of drugs, just trying different dosages, different combinations, 5 milligrams up on this one, down 3 on that one, just trying.
Like a cocktail, trying to get
really
or a
is.
recipe.
It really is.
Because I'm on Lexapro and that's been it for me. I've been like, that's thankfully...
Yeah.
It's fixed my generalized anxiety disorder. I still get breakthrough anxiety sometimes, but I manage it with lifestyle. But for you, it wasn't enough. You had other things that you needed to treat.
Extra stuff. But I met Audrey in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
And so in the middle, like honestly, at that point, I was like, I can't pretend that this isn't there. I'm like, hey, how you going? Yeah, I'm on this many different kinds of drugs, and I think about death and ending everything this many times a day. But I really like you. You're really awesome.
Put that on your Tinder profile.
But what was incredible about Audrey, what is incredible about Audrey is that she was immediately able to go, here's this guy, he's kind of interesting, he's kind of sometimes a bit weird, he's fun to be around. Here's this thing that's happening to this guy. And she could see them as 2 separate things. And that is the biggest
a gift.
Blessing that I could possibly have.
Talk about gratitude. That you can be #gratitude for.
There's something I don't know how she did it, but she was the first one who was able to break through it. All right. So I was, I don't know, at one point I was on the phone to her because I was living in an apartment that work had put me up with, and I was just, on one particular day, I don't know, I'd been scrolling through Twitter and I'd seen something like, I don't know, like a massive chunk of Greenland had just slid off the edge of the earth, and an ice sheet that's half the size of Tasmania was now gone that had been there for 100,000 years, and this is terrifying and we should all be fucking panicking, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't on the news and why people weren't worried, really, really worried that this was happening, and I was so scared. I was so scared, and I was, in my head I'm seeing, her home country of Fiji is now underwater, entire culture gone forever. Kiribati is nearly gone. Tonga, Samoa, all
this is in your head.
No, real. Kiribati is nearly gone.
But Fiji and Tonga aren't
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is what's happening in Kiribati is going to happen, and entire cultures, entire lifestyles, never to be seen again, gone forever. And then mass migration. I was so terrified of this whole thing. I was so scared, but in my head, all I was seeing was me sitting at the top of a hill somewhere, watching just people streaming past me, trying to get to higher ground, trying to get from the roiling, angry waters of stormy seas that were now rising up. But I was always alone in those visions, always alone. And then she just said, "Look, if that ever happens, don't worry, because I'll be there. If that ever happens, don't worry, it'll be okay, because I'll be with you." And I don't know how she did it. I don't know what she did, but it was the first time that it had ever stuck. All right. And it was as if, God, if you've ever been to a dodgy house party and they cover the windows in black plastic, right, and then the sun comes up, but there's this tiny little pinprick. It was like that. It was this tiny little pinprick of light in my head that it had nothing but horror and darkness by this point, like a year by this point. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's a light still on somewhere in there, and this woman's managed to find the switch. And I just held onto that. I just held onto that. And every day I'm grateful for that. And every day, I wake up every morning and I reach over and I find her in bed, and I'm like, oh yeah, if it does happen, she said, if it does happen, I will be there. And I'm like, well, it is, and she is. And I'm so fucking lucky that that's the truth, but somehow she managed to find that. I don't know. It was so full on me that she did that. And she does it every day. And sometimes I can be a real punish, especially when I came off the meds in December.
What can you be like when you're not easy to be around?
Oh, so
how does it manifest?
Very intense.
Now,
very intense. I can get really intense and very quite difficult and
grumpy, angry.
It's less that. It's more of I want to say aggressive. I'm going to say like a really pertinent,
like a dark cloud,
pertinent urgency about everything.
Intense.
This isn't done. The dishes aren't done, or whatever. They can be like, it just comes out of my mouth with so much weight and blame, or whatever. And Gigi is 14 and a half. She's like, do it yourself, which is good. Which is good. It can be a real punish. It can be a real punish for them. But I don't notice the difference. I only notice their reactions, and I go,
how does she
it
manage
must be me
it?
today.
How do they both manage it?
They say you need to check your shit today. You need to go work out. Go get on your bike. Go sort yourself out. All right, because
do they call you on it?
Yeah, but I can't tell when it's happening.
Yeah. I
can only see their reactions and go, everyone's reacting really weird today. It's me. It's me. I'm the one. I'm laying the darkness out into the room, and what I see, the darkness coming back to me, is actually me. All right, I'm gonna have to take care of this. Sometimes I don't see it quick enough, but we're all getting better at identifying it.
Tell me about body dysmorphia.
Oh, yeah. For years, I was really fat when I was a kid.
There's a picture of you in the book. I've always heard you say this, and I've never seen any evidence of it. So I always did wonder if it was in your head.
No.
And there's one picture of you as a kid who looked a little bit overweight.
By the time I got to 17, I was 112 kilos when I was 17. So I was fatty.
Yeah, that's not in the book. There's a picture of you when you were in about, 10 or 11.
10 or 11. I was in Weight Watchers when I was 8.
Wow.
I was 48 kilos when I was 8. But I've always had a kind of skinny-ish face, so no one really noticed. But yeah, I was which is essentially Weight Watchers is a 12-step program. It really is.
Yeah.
And
did you use food to kind of medicate and
self-soothe? Of course, because I had this horrible feeling in my stomach.
Yeah.
I had this horrible feeling of fear in my stomach, and the thing that made it go away was if I put things in it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how it worked. That's what I did. And my relationship to hunger was a bit distorted because I grew up with my grandmother, who was a survivor of World War II, and anyone that's had any kind of grandmother or parent who's survived any kind of war trauma, food is like, fuck you, Hitler, eat, kid, let's go. And that's what we had. And
store those calories.
Oh, get it in there. Get it as much as you can. If you're hungry, it's like hunger is the enemy. And so that's my relationship to hunger and food was pretty weird as a kid. But even when I remember getting onto Channel V, and I would wardrobe, you'd go up before the show and here's the T-shirts and stuff we might have you wear today, and they would pull these mediums out, and I'd only ever go for the L or the XL because I was convinced that no, I can't wear a medium.
Because you did lose a lot of weight when you when you were Andy G on Channel V, you were skinny. Well,
that's the thing. I would, when I got on Idol, I would look at...
Yeah.
I would look on...
But you didn't feel it?
No. I would look on, promos, and I'd look and see, who's that skinny guy standing next to James? It's me.
In your head, you always, when you looked in the mirror, you were still overweight.
Massive. I'm still massive. And since this Men's Health cover, Audrey gives me shit about it because she busts me every night. I brush my teeth with my shirt off looking in the mirror. Like that old Oral-B ad, but face on, right? Because every night I stand there and go... This is what my body looks like now. This is okay. Where there was love handles, there's now obliques. Where there was, nothing, there's now muscle. Where there was, your love handles are no longer the widest point on your body. Now your lats are. Just keep that in your mind. Keep that in mind. So every night I have to reframe that. But yeah, it's something I've dealt with my whole life, and it's just so interesting reprocessing everything and feeling those thoughts and going, okay, I appreciate that, but that's not real. What's real is that there I am standing on the cover of Men's Health magazine with 11% body fat, and that actually happened, and there was 20 people in the room when it happened. I didn't imagine it. I worked really hard to make it happen.
I want to talk about the Men's Health cover in a minute, but at first I want to talk about something that happened a year or two ago when the Daily Mail took paparazzi photos of you on holidays.
It was 2000.
Oh, sorry, you weren't on holidays. No. You were shooting you were at work.
It was 2015, and so I'm on 4 different kinds of meds. I'm on 2 different kinds of antipsychotics.
And weight gain was a symptom of that.
It messes with your insulin response. So no matter how much exercise I was doing, didn't matter. All right, that's what was happening. And anyone who's ever got in or out of a wetsuit will know it's not the most glamorous thing to do. All right?
No.
It really isn't. And I felt really bullied, and I felt really...
So they took photos, they took long-lens photos of you.
They followed me 2.5 hours out of Denpasar to do it.
And they ran lovely Daily Mail captions about Bali Belly, and they basically body shamed you.
And I took him to the press council and won.
You did. Now, you were the first person who'd done that on the basis of body shaming, and it was really interesting because... I've been body shamed by the Daily Mail, as have pretty much every woman in the public eye in Australia. We know what it's like. And we were all really like, go you good thing. It was great. It was ironic that the first person to take the press council on over this issue was a man. But it was great. Did you feel vindicated when you won? And what arguments did you have to put up to make the case? What made you decide to do it?
I basically, at the time, I said, look, I've never used my shirtless image to sell anything. And a reasonable expectation of privacy. I'm 3,000 kilometres from my house. I'm 2.5 hours away from where the main amount of production is happening. You have followed me on a scooter down a dirt road to a remote scuba diving site to get this photo.
Did it shock you that they did that? Because they do that to women every day.
Not really. And what's the wild thing is that I knew because the dive operator was like, no, we have to wait for the boat. And I remember seeing right after the van arrived, I remember seeing a scooter go vroom, kind of past us. And then as I was getting changed, I'm like, there's something not right about this. They're making me, I'm changing here in the street. Something's not right about what's happening.
So you're set up.
Oh, yeah, totally. It was a total setup.
And had you been aware, this is not a trick question because I imagine most men just aren't, but had you been aware that the Daily Mail, and not just the Daily Mail, but there's a whole industry that is built on body shaming women and... occasionally men, but sticking photos up Samantha Armitage's skirt.
Oh, absolutely. Of course I'm aware of that sort of stuff. And it makes
it's horrendous, right?
Yeah, it really is. And doing our show, you see the people you see them face to face who take these photographs and hunt for this stuff. I see them every day. It's not how I would like to earn my money. But if that's how they want to feed their family, that's fine with them.
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you took them on.
I felt really bullied. It was like being back at high school. It really, really was. And as far as reasonable expectation of privacy, it's like, no, this is not what you've done is not okay. And I was not okay with it. But I'm 100%, like the Men's Health thing had zero to do with that. Absolutely zero.
Yeah, no. I wasn't drawing a line between the two things. I wanted to ask you, obviously it was 2 years later, how did that come about? How did the Men's Health cover come about?
Just to cap in on the PAP photos, I just felt I felt as well. It was just super, super unfair to write what they did about, like, you're making a judgment call based on a photograph. You have no idea my circumstances. You have no idea what I'm going through. You have no idea the medication I'm on. And I know that there are thousands of people. There's people listening to this right now who people go, oh, you want to come join my F45? I can see you've put on a bit of weight, but they aren't able to say, because of their workplace, whatever, they aren't able to say, look, I'm on these meds that help me manage my life. But, people make all these judgment calls about someone else's body shape and size and go, it's because you're lazy. No, I was riding 250 kilometres a week when I was in LA, up and down bloody mountains, and I was still putting on weight. All right. When it got to the very end, right before, it was actually just before that season, I remember going to my doctor and said, mate, I'm down to track pants. This is the last clothes I've got that fit me. I'm about to go back and shoot. We've got to do something here. And so we adjusted the medication, and I had to then kind of grit my teeth a bit, but I was able to get by. But
yeah, and it's terrible for someone like you who is in the public eye that it's not as hard as being a woman, I imagine.
God, no.
But still,
I was born white, male, straight, and middle class in Australia. Oh, well, in a prosperous, white, westernised country. I'm the luckiest man in the world.
But you are in a profession that judges you by how you look.
That's okay. You know, this is the business we have chosen.
Yeah.
I chose to do this job.
Yeah.
All right. No one forced me to do it.
So the Men's Health came about. At the end of last year.
Yes. I honestly was never going to take my shirt off. This is 100%. I've done this a few times. I write about it in the book. I've managed to somehow manifest things into my career. Like, I'm never going to take my shirt off on camera unless it's the cover of Men's Health magazine. I'm going to be the first plant-based person to do it.
Why Men's Health?
Because it is the cornerstone and the high watermark of male body type.
Aesthetics.
A
particular male body type,
yes,
though.
Exactly. But, when it comes to, I'm a guy and I like to go get him and I look after myself and I crush it at work and my KPIs are on point, my relationship's awesome, I'm having hot sex and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, all this, whatever it is, all right? The guy on the cover is like, he's the guy.
But Osh, why do you want to be that guy? You're so much better than that guy. Why is that the ultimate for you?
Bear in mind, I wanted to do that for a different reason. I didn't want to get on that thing with, low double-digit body fat to go, look, I did it for low double-digit body fat. It came along, Em and Chief, who are the two coaches I work with, they're very, very good at what they do. They started boot camp in Australia, and they came along at the end, about October. I was still on meds at the time, and they said, look, we want to do this thing. And I was considering coming off meds. We were aiming for a December cutoff. And I was like, I'm going to have to put something where the meds were. You can't just not take meds and then think you're going to be fine. Because last time I did this, I fell off the rails and I went crazy. It's like cutting off a leg of a dinner table and expecting it still to be fine. You've got to prop it up with something. And so the medication...
But they tapped you because they felt that they could do a great before and after hot transformation.
Yeah, I
so
guess.
How did you feel when you got that tap? Because I know women who've had the tap from Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers, and it can't feel very good when you get the tap saying, hey, we want to make you lose weight.
I don't know. It was just I felt really great about it. I was like,
did you?
Yeah, because like what an opportunity. I've always, I've run marathons. I ride my bike a long way.
Yeah, you've always been super fit.
It's always been a part of managing my head. It's always the exercise has only ever been a part of managing my head. It's not really been aesthetic ever. And so, what better an opportunity to show that by looking after your mind, you can. Here is an aesthetic result that comes from looking after your mind. All right, I'm caring for my body. I'm caring for my mind by looking after my body. All right, and so every day I would train. Sometimes I would train twice a day, but I made a lot of time to do it. And sometimes I would finish work at 4 a.m. I would be at the gym at 10 to make sure I had an hour before I had a meeting at 12, and then head back to set by 4. All right, but I did it because if I didn't, I was a punish to be around. All right, and it was through the resistance training.
Does it become an obsession though?
No, because it's what I only did half an hour on kettlebells this morning, right? But I went really hard. What happens when you're activating those big compound movements when you're doing, as a man, I'm sure it's the same as a woman. For me, at least, I can only speak of my own experience, but the dopamine, which we spoke about earlier in the conversation, my serotonin is now getting secreted in a much more healthy way. My brain healed a lot. All right, when I was on the last drug, the clomipramine, my brain healed a lot, and I was able to form new neural pathways again, which I wasn't able to do. That's why the rationalization wasn't working, right? But so the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins, and the norepinephrine, which is a biggie. The norepinephrine is the one that allows you to deal with. It gives you resilience. It allows you to deal with adversity. All right, all those things get released when you do resistance training. All right, now I'd only really done kind of endurance training, like long rides, long runs, marathons, etc. And to get that same release, you've got to run a long time, like an hour-ish, for me at least, in my body. It didn't kick into like 55 an hour minutes, a while. But I can get that in half an hour or 40 minutes of just that. And then I get to go around my day with this kind of almost a superpower of like, I've got this. All right, I'm fine.
When you agreed to do it, like I imagine, obviously what's in it, they work for Men's Health, and that's a great. And you're smart. You're in the public eye. You get how this stuff works, and it's good for Men's Health, and it's good for you. Did you think about what else it might mean on the other side? Like, was it a hard decision did you talk to Audrey about it? Did you say, well, this will put my body into play.
Yes.
This will put my body into currency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
And did you need that to give you the motivation to keep going, or was that just a sacrifice you were prepared to make?
I don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as I know that my life started to get better when I heard someone else put their hand up and tell their story and me go, oh, hang on a second. Everything you said for the first 3/4 of what you just said is exactly what happened to me. But after the unemployment divorce part, you're now married, you've got a kid, you've got a career that's on point. Maybe your ideas are better than my ideas. Maybe I might start listening to you. All right. And so having this opportunity to speak to a whole group of people that otherwise I would never have a chance to speak to. I'm a plant-based person on the cover of Men's Health magazine. They've never had someone that doesn't eat meat on their cover. And there I am. And I've been, essentially vegan since 2002. All right. I put on 2.5 kilos of lean muscle without eating any meat. All right. So fuck your myths. All right. You don't need meat to get muscle. You really don't. And so I was showing that a plant-based diet can be absolutely just as good for your, and probably better as a man in their 40s, when it comes to cholesterol and things like that. And, this was me looking after my mental health. That's what this looks like. This is me taking control over the things that I can control. This is me making sure those hormones are released into my body, those things that my brain already releases to deal with adversity. I can kind of almost force them into existence by doing this thing. And guess what? You get to still wear a nice fitted MJ Bell suit on the telly, and that's nice. All right. Did I do it so I could, be the most shredded, ripty guy? Maybe in the last week or so when I was really close, I'm like, I'm almost there. Let's go for it. And boy, that last week was interesting. Getting cut down for the very final photo shoot was tricky.
Did you have to not drink and not?
There was a bit of that, but it was only the last 48 hours or so.
And you said you were hangry. And...
Yeah. I didn't look like that. 8 hours later, I didn't look like that.
But so then, Osh, what are you doing? So you put the image out there.
Yes.
There are a lot of guys who look like you before.
Yeah.
I know this isn't your responsibility, but I know you think carefully about everything you do, so I know that you would have thought about this. How do you think that's going to make them feel when there's something out there that doesn't even look like you?
It's wild, right? Well, it does. That's what I look like now.
But you said I didn't even look like that.
Well, not that much. Yeah. I mean, I've still got, there's still muscle definition there, but you can't see the vein. You can see a few veins, but I'm not quite as... Audrey said it looked anatomical on the day we did it.
But you know that there are, body image issues for young boys have never been worse.
This is true.
And this idea of the ripped... spray tanned, hairless. Yeah. You got your chest waxed, Bosh.
I wasn't waxed. It was this weird Bernie cream that my wife put on me.
She nared you.
I don't know what it was, but it was weird. It was very strange. And then she had a furry glove on me in the bathroom.
That's a specific aesthetic.
Yeah, but that's the look to get to that market, to get people that otherwise would never read a story about. I've managed to talk about mental health and sobriety. The whole article, if you read the article, is all about mental health and sobriety. There's a little bit about lifting. That's about it. There's the whole article in the Men's Health magazine is about taking control of your mental health and taking control of your drinking. That's it. That was my opportunity to share that story with a group of people that otherwise would never, he's the guy that counts the roses who changed his name. Why would I listen to him? All right? That, and the amount of emails, the amount of DMs that I've got from people who are like, I read your thing. I didn't know until I read that the drinking you were describing before you stopped drinking, I do that every day. Where can I get help?
So you reckon that aesthetic was like the Trojan horse to get in the gate?
Absolutely.
With your message?
Absolutely. Break into the machine and smash it from the inside. Sneak into the machine and smash it from the inside. That's the whole idea.
Because the headlines are all about half his body fat and lay and ripped and
But that's
blah,
all
blah,
you
blah.
see. That's just on the front cover. The rest of it is all about mental health and drinking. And for the guy who looked like I did, just the 3 squats in the morning while you make the toast. Right, my buddy Jared, who I play poker with every Wednesday.
Well, it's a bit more than that. Like you just said, you're at the gym every day all day.
It starts there. I talk about this in the book. When I was 18 and unemployed, I was over 100 kilos. I was sitting around watching Sally Jessy Raphael, eating Wheat Bix, then watching Aerobics All-Star with the sound down. Just the internet was before the internet. As a man, to get your visual thrills, you had to cheetah there today. Cheetah's there today. All right. I had to trick myself into exercise. So I tricked myself by doing the absolute smallest amount of exercise I possibly could do, which was to walk to my mailbox. all right, which was 10 meters from my front door. That is the extent of what I could do before I ever ran. This is when I was 18, right? I had to trick myself, all right? So I'm just going to check the mail, but I put my shoes on. And I just went down, I walked past the letterbox, I walked around the block, which is about 600 meters. I went on Google Maps and checked it out when I wrote the book. And then on the way back into my house, grabbed the mail. So I had checked the mail, but I'd walked for 10 minutes. All right? That's all it took. And that 10 minutes turned into 11, turned into 12, turned into 13. And then before you know it, within 2 months, I'm running 4Ks. All right? And so that's what I would say to the guy who looks like the before photo. It was like, it's just a tiny little incremental wedges that you can do every day. One squat, one push up against the wall. Take that control.
You might look like the before photo and be fine.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Be happy with your life.
Absolutely you can.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't.
I wasn't.
But you can be.
Yeah, absolutely you can. But I'm just saying, like, for my brain to be able to cope, for me to get by, there's things that I need to do, so I don't need to take medication. And one of those things is there's these things in my brain that get released that allow me to cope with the intrusive anxiety, but I can stimulate those releases by exercising. All right? And if I do that, then I don't need to take meds today.
I wish they could have put a picture on the cover of Men's Health of your happy brain and your happy heart.
I'd need to get into an fMRI machine for that.
Like the cover of your book. To me,
that's pretty good, isn't it?
That's the value. Like, you're happy here. I just feel, and this is a personal thing, but also speaking as a woman and also the mother of sons, the reductive nature of the makeover, the before and after. Yeah. And I know that for you, it's not just, hey, I've lost weight. It's about your head.
Absolutely.
But it's all. But what everyone sees is the weight loss. And I was worried. I also worried for you that, do you then set up, your body's now in play. Mm-hmm. So next time when the Daily Mail photographers have got long lenses, and maybe you have put a bit of weight back on because sometimes it happens, what can you do?
Not give a shit. That's what I can do.
But you gave a shit last time.
I did, because they were essentially bullying someone who was in a very vulnerable, private space and, in a very vulnerable, health situation. And they're basically pointing and laughing at you're pointing and laughing at the weird kid. All right. It's like, what are you? You 12? No, we don't do this. We're all professionals. There's a professional expectation that I will have my photograph taken in public as I walk around, which has happened all the time, and that's fine. That's the job, okay? But when I'm 2.5 hours down a dirt track at a remote dive site on the other side of the planet, nah, that's not okay. But as far as...
Do you feel like by doing that Men's Health thing, you've set yourself up in your own head for, I'll never look like that again? So like I will always be comparing myself against that. It's a bit like women on their wedding days. You've had 2 wedding days. I don't know what your wives will like on their wedding days. I was quite big on my second one,
I promise you that.
I don't mean you, I mean them. Like there's a thing among women where they never look as good as they do on their wedding day.
But this is I'm setting myself up. All I'm doing is looking after my mind. All right? And if I'm managing my mental health, my body will look okay. All right. It's aesthetically, there's an aesthetic benefit to managing my mental health. That's what I need to do every day. Okay. At least 20 minutes of resistance training every day is, even if I can't get that, like I told you before, between the coffee machine and the microwave when I make my oatmeal, I can get 3 sets of like a push up and a chin up and whatever in and get it done. And that's enough, just enough to squirt that stuff into my brain that makes me kind of hoses down the ruminating anxiety just a little bit.
And I know you're very careful to say this in the book and in your interviews, but there's nothing kind of morally superior about being off meds.
God, no.
Or somehow if you're on meds, you haven't failed.
No, fuck no.
So
no,
you won't, if you have to go back on meds, and you're always really careful about saying, I might have to go back on meds.
Could
and you've done it carefully with medical supervision. And this is not an ad for people to jump off their meds and go and lift a heavy thing.
God, no.
Because that would be dangerous.
I had to be on medication after the psychosis started. I was on medication for about nearly 3 years before my brain was healthy enough to start creating the new neural pathways that allowed me to challenge those intrusive anxiety thoughts. But that's when the work starts. Don't think it's like everything's hunky-dory now. I work all day so I don't fall off the edge of the earth again. Yeah. But with any medication.
It is work, isn't it?
It is, but that's fine.
Maintenance.
This is the brain I got. Yeah. This is what I got, and this is what I work with, and this is fine. It does allow me to be, I'm far more deliberate about my day. It has, there's an element of my career that has benefited from it because I'm very goal-oriented and very like when I write down every morning, so what do I want to achieve with my day? What purpose am I going to attack my day with today? I'm going to do this, this, and this. And at the end of the day, when I do my other meditation, my other writing, I'm like, what did I do today? I did this, this, and this. Oh, yeah, okay. And it kind of helps keep that locus of control internal, which is so, so important. But absolutely, you know, I haven't had a drink in 8.5 years. All right, 50% of all people that stop drinking will drink again. All right, so it's 50-50 that I'll drink again. It's 50-50 my marriage will break down. It's 50-50 that I'll go back on meds, probably higher. All right, and if any of those things happen, that's okay. But right now, this is the only day I've got. This moment with you sitting in your studio, this is all I've got. And I would say to, you know, anyone on medication, just listen to your doctor because. And then the amount of people that have, you know, did come forward, and it's going to happen once you disclose, people start to disclose too.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, I stopped taking them because this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, making a decision about not taking meds with a brain that needs meds to make good decisions is not a good decision. All right. So the amount of people that, I don't want to take it. Was like, did your doctor tell you? No, I just didn't take them on days. Wow, neither you or I are medical professionals.
I'm better now. I don't need them. It's like, no, you're better because you're taking them.
But I understand because I did exactly the same thing. You know, when I was given I think it was olanzapine, my doctor said, okay, look, only take it if you need it. And I was like, oh, if I don't take it, I don't need it.
I loved that magical thinking. Yeah.
But we all do that. Look, everyone that has been in that situation has done it.
I felt anxious about going on my anxiety meds, but now I never want to come off them. To me, I suppose because of the side effects, I don't have side effects particularly.
Yeah.
So to me, it's I'm not trading anything off against staying on them. And I understand, like, you know, the side effects that you talked about were really tough. And for some people, it's just not manageable.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this conversation at all. But the other thing that Audrey's amazing about is that Audrey allowed me to write down in this book how it is to try and start a relationship with someone whose testosterone has been really adversely affected by medication.
Yeah, because a lower sex drive can be a big thing for men and women.
But lower would be nice.
Yeah.
0 was what I had. You know, and trying to start a relationship when, you know, you're looking for the spark.
Yeah.
Okay. When testosterone is the matchbox. All right. And there was no matches, you know. So I'm there with this incredible woman who's so kind and lovely and amazing and beautiful with the Disney princess eyes and just the most stunning, kind lady. And I watch her mother her child and it's like, oh my God, you're amazing. I'm so in love with you. But
I just
that
don't want to
other
have sex
part
with
of my
you.
body was just like, like nothing going on. And so it was you know, it takes a while to. Yeah. You can't just look at someone and go, great, we've got 10 minutes, go. Like, it's
well, the
not
thing
like
is,
that.
for women also, you can, as Bettina Arndt says, throw the canoe in the river and start paddling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you can't manufacture that if you're a bloke.
No, but there was a lot of canoe work. It was like, honey, it's
a lot of paddling.
It might be about an hour, but we'll get there. But we got there. But it's important to talk about because so many people don't talk about it. So many, they really want their wife or husband to get better, and then when the wife or husband starts feeling better, but they're just not interested.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, to be honest, it's like, men who go ahead and decide to have, surgery around prostate cancer. It's like the whole ramifications of that need to be talked about and need to be, it's really, really important. But I'm really grateful that Audrey let me write about that because it's the icky part that no one talks about when it comes to dealing with mental illness and loving someone who is dealing with it. She's an incredible woman. And
she really is.
She really, really is. She's taught me so much. And the kindness that emanates from her every action is just astonishing. And I wish you could eat the curry she cooked for me that first night.
It sounds amazing. And there's a beautiful picture of her in the book.
There's a photo in the book of her cooking the curry.
Yeah, I love that.
The whole, you make a meal for someone and they fall in love with you, absolutely happened.
When we were texting last week and you the week before and you texted a big news on Monday. And I was going to text you back a baby emoji. I was like, oh my God, he's having a baby. It's like, no, I'm having a men's health cover.
Well, it wasn't 9 months, but it was 3.
I'm so happy to see you happy and well and kicking goals.
I'm just so really grateful that you are not only in my life and have been in my life, and you having this conversation because you've known me for a long time.
Yeah.
You knew me when I was like running around with blonde hair and just like
I
take no prisoners. And it was. And
I thought you were
there.
going to say running around with blonde girls. Because like in our last conversation, I said to you, funnily enough, I said, Osh, I hear you're really good at sex. Word has got back to me that you're really good at sex. Clearly that was a time when you weren't on meds. I made you blush again.
You say, look.
No, I've seen so many different parts of you over so many years, and I think that's something that's really important to note as well, is that through all of this, and you've detailed it so beautifully and helpfully in the book, you are someone who is very high functioning, as bad as you got with your psychosis, with your, when you've been feeling suicidal and all of that. People would not have known because you turned up to work and they probably saw you on the TV and they saw you, at the Logies or wherever it would have been, and they saw you on social media. And I think it's really important for people to understand that you can be really, really ill with mental health problems and not be curled up in a ball or in a hospital. You can actually be walking through the world, so you never know what someone else is going through.
You never
know.
And you're exactly right. A part of that, though, and I do write about this, is that work was one of the only things that made it better.
Yeah.
Having that focus, having that, I'm doing something with other people. Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
So
some people can't, but the fact that you could.
That was
also the fact that you were there didn't mean you weren't really sick. The fact that you were turning up and doing a fantastic job didn't also mean that the other thing wasn't also true, that you weren't really unwell.
Oh, absolutely.
And in terrible strife. So people need to just remember that there are a lot of people walking and talking amongst us.
Yeah.
Anxiety and depression and mental health issues can look a lot of different ways. And it's not always the person shuffling in the streets.
No. Complex mental illness affects 1 in 4 Australians.
Yeah.
All right. So it's huge. But I absolutely have to say, Mia, that I'm so grateful that you are who you are and you're doing what you're doing, particularly in this world of independent broadcasting that you're doing. It's very, very exciting. It's super inspirational. And I'm grateful to be a tiny part of your extraordinary success. Just to be able to be in it, be around and see your office full of people when it was just you and a laptop at your kitchen. It's fucking amazing.
You've been there. You've seen it grow.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Back at you, watching you write this book and the podcast and show people that you're so much more than the Rose guy on the TV or Andy G from Channel V.
Yeah.
It's like a Dr. Seuss book.
Well, I'm doing a live show to launch the book.
You are, August 30th.
August 30th.
How do people get tickets?
At Giant Dwarf, osher.is/live.
Why aren't you touring it?
Because we're shooting it first and then doing a proof of concept, and then we'll use that to show venue owners in other parts of the country.
Why don't you just book? I'm doing a tour.
This is a good idea.
I didn't show anyone.
All right.
I just booked the tour. They'll take your money.
Maybe I should.
Hire the venue. They'll take your money. Everyone would love to come and see you.
Well, we're going a lot, when you're doing a book tour, you can either sit on a folding table at the back of a bookshop somewhere with a Sharpie and take photos. But I thought, you know what? This whole book started as a storytelling show.
Yeah.
And so let's make it a storytelling show.
Are you going to sing?
I am. We're going with the stories and songs format, popularised by James Barnes. And or Jimmy, people might call him. But yeah, Toehider, who does all the music for my podcast, has been kind enough, because there's some parts of the book that are pretty icky and might get...
Are you going to sing them?
I am going to sing them. Because there's parts of the book that are like... It'll be,
psychosis.
Well, it'll be either,
friend.
You'll be standing on stage going, and then this horrible thing happened, and everyone in the room's like, oh, this is morose. It's
and
like
then the tides rose, and
something
the world
like
was destroyed.
It's a bit
in
like
my head.
It's a bit like that. Yeah. So there's a couple of songs in there, which are really fun.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. So the book, the stage show, the Batch Returns, and the podcast, which is just a delight.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah. You're a delight, my friend. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mia.
I love the book. I love the cover of the book.
Steve Bacon shot
I love
that.
it more than the Men's Health cover, Let the Record Show, because it's your beautiful brain and it's your eyes and it's in your soul.
Ah, yes.
And I don't care what you look like.
Thank you, Mia. You're a gem.
Thank you for listening to No Filter this week and every week. I hope you do listen every week. If you need to talk to someone, if this has brought up any issues for you, please contact Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. You can buy Osher's book Back After the Break at any good bookstore or at apple.co/live. Mamma Mia. If you like this episode and you're wondering what to listen to next, I have a suggestion. Why not check out my first ever interview that I did with Osher way back in 2015. And in that conversation, apart from telling him that I'd heard he was good at sex, we discussed everything from why he changed his name, a lot of people very curious about that, to the breakdown of his first marriage. And it will give you even more of an insight into who he is. Now, next week on No Filter, I am going to be speaking to a woman who is raising her child as gender-free. It's actually called gender creative parenting. Kyle Myers is a mum to 2-year-old Zuma, and she and her partner Brent have refused to reveal the gender of their child. They use they, them, their pronouns, and it's a really fascinating story. You're not going to want to miss this one. I will be back in your ears with the story of Zuma and gender creative parenting next week. This show was produced by Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman. Please subscribe to this podcast, tell a friend, and I will see you on mamamia.com.au.